Now picture this with me. It's the late 70s and early 80s. The the Atari and Nintendo companies are at the forefront of gaming with their video game mascots like Pac-Man and Mario. Those two would end up becoming the pinnacle of video game mascots. And it would really be the main driving force when it comes to the console wars. However, the game changed when in the early 90s, everyone's everyone's favorite hedgehog Sonic came into the picture, with Sega churning out video game after video game with Sonic. And around the early 2000s, PlayStation had their own mascot to be able to answer to Pac-Man, Mario, and Sonic. and that video game character would happen to be Crash Bandicoot. And thanks to Crash Bandicoot, and thanks to PlayStation's approach to 3D platform games, this really made them a huge competitor against Nintendo. And I mainly say Nintendo because Sega hasn't really been doing very well with their games, so unfortunately, Sega's been out in the long run, and so has Atari. Sorry. But anyway, even though a lot of mascots have been put in the forefront of video games back and forth, and when someone brings up video games, you usually think about Pac-Man or Mario or Sonic or Crash Bandicoot or Link from Legend of Zelda. But and Ratchet and Clank too, and Spyro the Dragon. I can't forget those characters. I absolutely love those characters. Although, admittedly, I haven't really played that many Ratchet and Clank games. I've only played like a couple of them. But back to let me get back on point here. There is one character that I feel like should be included into this conversation. I feel like people don't really talk about this character that much when it comes to video games. And that character happens to be Sly Cooper. Yep, Sly Cooper, the cunning, devious raccoonus. Pretty much in the early 2000s when he was introduced, this really pushed 3D platforming around that time period to a whole new level, and it really introduced a lot of new gameplay mechanics, like the fact that you can be able to look through binoculars as Sly Cooper, and you can be able to interact a bit with the world that's around him. Unfortunately, though, there hasn't been that much success with the Sly Cooper games from what I've heard. I heard that critics only find it kind of mid. However, however, I love. However, with myself, I love the Sly Cooper games. They are one of my all-time favorite video games of all times. And from what I understand, after Sly Cooper first came out, it gained a massive cult following. I'd say a couple years after the video game series began. So around 2005, it started pushing out a few sequels where it really expanded upon Sly Cooper's very own story. Now, I know what you're asking. Greg, which of the video games will you be talking about today? Will you be talking about the first one? Will you be talking about Sly 2, Band of Thieves? Will you be talking about Sly 3, Honor Among Thieves? Or the most recent one, the fourth one, Thieves in Time? Well, for this one, I'm going to be talking specifically about the first one, the one that started it all. And I have to say, as far as story goes with Sly Cooper is phenomenal. It is unmatched by any other video game out there. The fact that you have the main character who starts out just on top of a rooftop and being able to move around and be able to dodge security beams and being able to dodge Carmelita Fox's dodge the shots from Carmelita Fox's elect shock pistol. Shock pistol. That's what I was trying to say. Sorry. It really ended. It really brought a whole lot of story to the game, especially. And also, I want to be able to make this clear that there will be some spoilers. So if you don't want to be able to spoil the game, have the game spoiled for you, then I recommend clicking off of this video. So pretty much, with the main story, how it goes, Sly Cooper was a kid learning from his father and learning from this ancient heirloom that he got from his own family, the Thievius Raccoonus, which is this book that teaches people how to be a master thief. I definitely find it interesting because I always viewed Sly Cooper as a sort of Robin Hood character who steals from the rich and gives to the needy. Well, it's a little bit different with Sly, considering how he just ends up keeping what he steals instead. Well, actually, we don't really know that much about what he does with the things that he steals from other criminals and power hungry warlords and stuff like that. There are a few hints here and there that he does sell them off to other places, but yeah, that's moments like that in Sly 2 and in Sly 3, and also in Sly 4. Those are the only canon things that we basically get from on that end. But but back on topic. One moment while Sly was studying his family's book, his ancient family heirloom, a group of five evil villains called the Fiendish Five. Well, to put it nicely, they overpowered his own family, and they rummaged through the house. They took the book and they split into 5 different pages. And then they just went off doing whatever. And Sly ended up being in an orphanage where he met his good friends Bentley and Murray. Bentley is the brains of the group, while Murray is the transportation expert. And in later games, he also ends up becoming the muscle, which I will touch upon that development with Murray's character on later reviews. But in terms of this game, the story definitely adds. Even though the story does seem like a sort of chess piece sort of story where it kind of like walks you through how the story goes. It is really entertaining and it is really easy to understand, unlike Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy, where they are good game. They are really good games, but their story's just really hard to follow. Anyway, Sly goes through the layers of each of the Fiendish Five, like Raleigh the Frog, Mugshot, who's a bulldog, obviously, Ms. Ruby, who's an alligator in the swamp, and the Panda King, who's a panda, and this metallic owl known as Clockwork, who's the big villain of the entire Sly Cooper series. And it's he's a pretty interesting and a pretty intimidating villain, to be sure, considering how he makes this whole suit of metal and machine, and he powers it by using hatred to be able to make himself immortal, which there's a lot of fan theories that says that Clockwork is actually from the future, and he time travels different through different through different Sly Cooper eras to be able to exact revenge on the Sly Cooper family, which I think that would make a lot of sense, all things considered, because how on earth would you be able to find a machine, a metallic suit of metal and machines in ancient Egypt? That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. But anyways, let's get back to the gameplay. Let's get to the gameplay, I should say. And even though it is pretty dated in terms of video game standards, like there are a lot of games that have incredible graphics, like Red Dead Redemption 2 and BioShock Infinite, the games that I pretty much reviewed already, and also other games like with the Final Fantasy remake and with Sly 4 Themes in Time, which does update their Really, Ninja? Really? Well, now I have my cat Ninja here as my part of my captive audience. So, basically, what I was trying to say is that despite how the graphics look pretty dated, especially in terms of how modern games are, it still does have its charm, and it still has a lot to offer, especially when it comes to a lot of the other tasks you can do in the game. Like, for example, you can be able to collect clues in bottles to be able to unlock more pages from the Thievius Raccoonus. And you can even also do the Master Thief time sprints, which are basically obstacle courses where you have to be able to make it to the end of each level before time runs out. And that really adds a lot of replay value to the gameplay. And that's pretty much the best aspect to the gameplay too. It's replay value. The fact that you can be able to go back and play over and over again as much as possible really adds a lot a lot a lot of a lot to the game. And now, last but not least, let me get to the characters. And there's a lot of fun characters other than Sly, who's the pretty much like the sort of James Bond sort of character. He's charismatic, he's cunning, he's very quick-witted, he's very laid back. He's the type of guy that you definitely would want to root for in a tough situation. And Bentley, since he's the brains, he's kind of the nerdy one of the bunch. He always throws equations around and always says a lot of big words. Pretty much, I think a lot of people know people like that. Then there's also Murray, who I feel like is, other than Sly, he's one of my favorite characters. Don't you think, Ninja?
Yes, he's my favorite character too.
Anyways, there's a lot of fun characters that each have their own personality, and not just the main characters, but also characters that are just as involved with the story, like Carmelita, who's basically a private investigator who hunts for Sly and tries to get him behind bars. And not to mention the villains like the Raleigh and Mugshot and Ms. Ruby and Clockwork and the Panda King. They all have their own personality. And even some of the characters you face on each of the levels, like have their own personality. Like there's a walrus that shoots stars at you. There's also Ninjas take it easy back there. There's also a walrus with a hammer, a squid that shoots ink at you. There's also a bunch of ghosts that come after you in Ms. Ruby's lair. There's also some gangster bulldogs that try to attack you with machine guns. But don't worry, this game is rated E for everyone, so not too much. So there's definitely not that much intense violence in the game. It's mainly just the sort of cartoony violence that you'd see in like the 40s and 50s. Not to mention, there's also one of my favorite characters that one of my favorite characters that is not a main character who has a lot of personality is one of the skeleton turtles that shoots its head at you and it's on fire. Yeah, it may sound intense, but really it's not. It's just mainly cartoony stuff. But yeah, overall, I highly recommend playing Sly Cooper. It's a really fun game. It's re- it has re- it's a really memorable story, and even though the gameplay isn't really as polished as a lot of games are, it still has it. It still has its charm. So yeah, I'll definitely give this game a 9 out of 10. Well, either an 8 or 8.5 or a 9 out of 10. But anyways, see you next time.